she's going to show up.
Yeah, she does make the grand entrance.
Okay, all right, so we'll wait. I just don't want to do that. Get you some water. I don't know if you want it.
Yeah, you said it automatically goes on at 7? No. And Beth's coming, I'm assuming.
Well, I sent a text to everybody the agenda before I left. I'll text her. I just don't want her to
All right. Want to start anyways? Yeah. Unless this is her. No. We'll go. Yep. Yep. All right. Welcome everyone to the Town of Brookfield Select Board meeting Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Please rise and pledge flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Anyone else recording? No. Warrants. Do you want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two warrants. Warrant fiscal year 25-05 for accounts payable is in the amount of $219. And fiscal year 25-05 warrant is in the amount of $204.53.
Item number 1, Senior Study Committee discussing formation.
Perhaps have the board authorize myself to come up with a charge to be reviewed and then approved by the board.
You want a motion?
Sure.
Sorry.
What's that?
I'm sorry, I was going to do the same thing, so.
Okay, great minds.
I'll make a motion that we appoint a 7-member committee to look into locations and existing buildings for a senior center.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 2, tree work contracts.
Oh, wait a second.
Oh, go ahead.
You need a second motion. Let's authorize, or do we need something to direct you to go ahead and give us a charge, or?
Yeah, if it would probably be cleanest to do that one, then I can
So
present
moved.
it to the next meeting.
Okay, second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, tree work contract bids and award.
I had a question for Dennis regarding, I didn't see the size of the aerial lift that they would be providing. Do you know that offhand? Is it a 75 or?
It's a 75-foot aerial.
Okay,
You can find out exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's a 75-foot.
okay. I know he's got a few different ones, so I would want to make sure it's that,
He also has a spider lift that I think is an 85.
okay,
80 or 85. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
okay. Yeah, I think the price looks good at $1,200 a day.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Rusty Tree.
So move. Yeah.
Any,
Second.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Number 3, host community agreements, Sun Fusions, marijuana licensing, discuss next steps. Docs and packet, Ron to take lead.
Yes. As the board is aware, recently, the state's Cannabis Control Commission, or CCC, had rejected the signed and endorsed host community agreement between the town of Brookfield and Sun Fusions, Inc. Specifically, they found it quote-unquote non-compliant because there was one, provisions discouraging and preventing a party from bringing a civil action or legal challenge against the HCA. That is found in section 18, page 13 of the existing HCA. And they also found it non-compliant because there are provisions that impose additional expenses above and beyond a community impact fee on the marijuana establishment. And that, once again, highlighted in the HCA, can be found in sections 3A, subsection 7 on page 3, section 3B, subsection 2 on page 4, section 5 on page 4, section 7 on page 5, and section 8 on page 5. All of those particular sections dealt with additional expenses and fees that may be incurred by the applicant, Sun Fusions, depending on different circumstances and situations. The CCC deemed that as not being proper or in compliance with their understanding of the law.
So can I just restate something back for clarity's
Sure.
sake? So what they're saying is that fundamentally in the HCA, we were overreaching and putting either too much financial burden or too many controls on the applicant.
I would say that that's correct in the CCC's perspective, from their perspective.
Correct. The governing body for the,
Yes.
for these documents.
I just want to make one public statement that I am in a butter to this property and this individual, so I am going to recuse myself.
All right, thank you. And in speaking with town council, let's say town council is not in full agreement with the CCC's finding of non-compliance, nor are they big fans of the CCC and how they are interpreting not only this HCA, but many other HCA's. Basically, in town council's eyes, they are overstepping their regulatory powers, at least, once again, in KP Law's eyes. So at this point, we no longer have an HCA with Sun Fusions, and as a result, that obviously puts a damper, if not a complete stop, on Sun Fusion's project on Molasses Hill. For the town's perspective, there are a few different options that are available to us, and they truly run the spectrum. I have a few of them here. One, we could delete the sections or provisions that the CCC found to be non-compliant, and those are easily detected. As I had indicated, they highlighted those, and we know the sections. So we could just delete those and then resubmit it to the CCC, looking for their acceptance. I think in some of the preliminary and initial discussions I've had with town council, they would advise us against that. They believe that the provisions that the CCC found to be non-compliant are protecting the town, and obviously that's what town council's responsibility is, towards protecting the town. So they feel as though those provisions are warranted and do have a purpose to protect the town. So that's one option, kind of the delete and resubmit. The second option is to re-enter negotiations with Sun Fusions and attempt to agree upon a modified version of the HCA and then resubmit that to the state, to the CCC. The CCC does have a model HCA that, in essence, they're really trying to push us towards in every community that is creating and submitting HCAs.
Is that like what they did for the retail they've done for manufacturing and everything
They
else?
had done it literally the week that we signed the HCA, the CCC released all of their templates. And I had the discussion with town council at the time, and because we were this close to alignment, in spite of the fact that there was provisions
Yeah.
above and beyond what was in the template. So we went forward in the interest of having, as town council indicated, some additional provisions on the table to provide some, additional controls or oversight, and address what a reasonable person would presume would be some of the concerns by the community, right? And we found common ground in spite of the fact, and Sun Fusions was aware that the template had come out and that a lot of the things that were in there were above and beyond. And in spite of that, they were willing to find that common ground with us, and put it in front of the CCC, giving them the opportunity to determine whether it was compliant or not. I will say, in the interest of full disclosure, Sun Fusions did express an opinion that they probably would not be found 100% compliant relative to all of the provisions we put in there. But it was, I'll be transparent, we took a throw it against the wall and see what stick approach to provisions that town council advised me were, that's good, really bad English, advisable. So now we are exactly where there's a kind of a prediction we might be, which is that the state would define what was in there as being significantly different than what the state guidelines are for what's supposed to be contained within the agreement. So you don't happen to have a copy printed up of the template, or could Karen go print a copy of the template from that link right now?
Yeah, I do not know.
I'd like to pass a copy out to every person sitting in this room right now of the blank template.
Of the CCC's template?
The CCC's template.
Yeah, well, if you give me 3 minutes, I could run
I
upstairs.
think
and-
I got it here.
You got
Is
it?
this
Okay.
it?
Yeah, so finish talking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out a few.
Was this one though for retail, or
That one might
did
be
it not
retail.
really matter?
There's different ones, I believe, for each flavor. I could
Yeah,
be
I
wrong.
agree. I think there's
There are
different
templates here.
Yeah, I think there's several templates.
If you send the right one over, I'll print it out.
Yeah, and I apologize, I didn't reply to the email on the 28th. I meant to ask y'all to bring on a bunch of copies of that.
Okay.
So, that's my bad. But keep going.
Yep, okay.
Keep
So
going
is
with
that-
our options.
So that was, option number 2 kind of, I guess, has 2 different flavors, if you will. One, work with Sun Fusions to come up with a modified agreement and submit that. Or I guess another subsection under option 2 would just be to utilize the template that the CCC is evidently strongly recommending for everyone. So now option 3 is to submit a written request back to the CCC requesting that parties are in agreement to, by resubmitting it and have them take another look with, I guess, different management, perhaps different perspective, if you will, that it's worth a shot, if you will. So that's option number 3, to resubmit. Option number 4 is to submit what's referred to as an HCA waiver. Now, the one caveat with that, and this is right from the CCC's waiver form, it says, please note that an executed HCA waiver constitute a total relinquishment of the HCA requirement between the host community and the license applicant or licensee. So in other words, that's allowing the project to go forward through all the local permitting and the vetting that the CCC would do without an HCA and the protections that are inherent to that. So that's option number 4. And then option number 5, which I guess you could call the nuclear option, where the town says, well, I guess this wasn't meant to be, and they walk away from the project, and no HCA is submitted, or no HCA waiver submitted. So as you can see, the options before the board and the town are really from A to Z.
I didn't get anything yet. Wait till he sends
I
it.
think he was just
Oh, I
looking at it,
didn't-
because I think
oh,
he's the
sorry.
one that might have forwarded it.
No, hold on. Do you want copies for everyone, or?
Well, for the, for the template, yeah, she'll print them and we can make as many copies as we need to. So, and I also think, we may actually have an option also that we didn't cover, which is, and we'd have to talk to Mr. Fromm and his counsel about it, is to move forward on starting fresh on the retail as a piece of that separate, because it's severable from the agriculture and the manufacturing,
Absolutely, yep.
right? Yeah, so I struggle with the resubmit the same document, and I'm gonna be frank with you.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we didn't get an answer until the 28th of August is because they went through their change of command change before they reviewed our stuff,
Right.
right? So it doesn't make a lot of, that recommendation doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We waited, when did we submit that? Do you know what date we
I
sent
think
that over?
it was signed, I believe, May 2nd,
Okay, so we sent it over probably
within a day or two, I would
within a
assume.
day or two of May 2nd. And we're trying to say that we're gonna get a different set of eyes on it when we got our answer on the 28th of August. Is that what we're saying?
Correct. Well, yeah, because,
For
I
the
mean,
sec-
unfortunately, we don't really exactly know what's happening behind the scenes.
True.
But I think what KP Law, and once again, this is based upon what they've heard, what they've seen with their experiences, is that the CCC, well, I'll quote town council, CCC is a mess.
So did they, when town council reviewed this, did they give you a detailed explanation back to like, all right, this highlighted area?
Why they think
Right.
it's actually supportable.
Oh, why each of those are support?
Yeah, and I'm
I
kinda
mean,
wondering
nothing,
why, yeah.
yeah, nothing other than these were put in place for the protection of the town, both from a liability, legal standpoint, as well as a financial. Because if you look, there were several different instances where fees could be imposed if some certain circumstances arose.
Well, and it wasn't so much fees as defining at whose cost certain things would occur.
True.
Like if we were gonna get a subject matter expert to determine whether or not there was an odor issue that would be
Yes.
paid for by Sun Fusions, that the town wasn't bearing that burden.
Correct.
Right?
Yep, that's exactly correct.
So, but do we have copies of the ones with highlighting? Because this doesn't help me any. It's really nice that y'all.
I mean,
put it
I
out.
guess what
Without
I'm-
the highlight, I can't
Yeah.
tell what section is what.
Yeah, this one is highlighted. See if you guys can check that out. Yeah, the first few pages are really the fees.
Okay, so they said that it couldn't be for 8 years.
Oh, yeah, they didn't like that part as well, which
What's the current state law?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can understand why they don't want that in there, because that makes it above and beyond the,
Okay. All right, so let's start by, I I get the high level instructions. What else is on the agenda tonight?
Personnel Board vacancy, Memorial Day
Can we
Committee.
take everything else out of order and come back to this? Would you
Yeah.
object to that? Let's get everything else off the table.
Do you have any issue?
No?
Yeah,
And then let's grind through in forum.
yeah.
You're welcome, Phil.
Golden.
Okay.
Unless you want to stay for
I
everything.
know you're not asking for public comment, but I'm taking that as a positive public comment. Okay. All right. So let's do that. Let's burn through the administrivia, right? And then let's roll up our sleeves and let's go through the details of this crap because I don't want to have to revisit it more than once, and we might as well do it while everybody's here.
Read number 4 and I'll make a
Yep.
motion.
Memorial Day Committee appointments, Michael Siri, Jean Lytle, William Gilmeister.
I'll make a motion, we appoint all 3 to the Memorial Day Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And thank you, sir, for
Yay,
volunteering.
I'm excited.
Outstanding.
Yeah, $3,500, I understand, correct? I don't know, whatever, but.
Whatever you ask for, it ain't budget season yet. Yeah.
Well, no.
Oh, no, that's right, it's from last year, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Anyway, I'm excited, this is great. Jean Lytle actually sent me an email just a bit ago, for just 2 minutes here, suggesting your son might want to join
Okay.
at some point, but.
You can, I don't think we set it up to be a certain
just-
size.
No, I think we might have,
All right,
maybe
so-
5,
so
or I don't
if
know.
we need to do something,
Yeah.
let's come back.
Just come back,
Gold.
absolutely.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Excited for Memorial Day.
5.
Discuss Personnel Board vacancy.
Yes, if
Do
you're.
we have anyone that wanted to?
No, but there is one of the things that, and we did briefly, well, not, maybe not so brief, but we did discuss with, oh gosh, probably 2-3 meetings ago, where we kind of have a hybrid membership, if you will, where Mr. Chafee was going to do 6 months, and then
Right.
Ms. Coughlin was going to do 6 months. So the question I have is, should we go out and advertise? Should we keep that hybrid membership and then advertise for another full-time member? Or would the preference be that Ms. Coughlin has a full membership, Mr. Chafee has a full membership instead of the hybrid?
That's what I would prefer.
We'll just have to post all the meetings
Right.
as a
I'm good with that.
as a joint meeting.
I don't go to the
And you don't
meetings,
have to go
so-
to the meetings. And we'll alleviate you of any responsibility. The only thing on the select board meeting will be working meeting personnel committee. So, and we can make that easy.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously,
I mean, the only problem I have with that is if we had volunteers, is frankly, I'd prefer to have participation from the employees and or the town or the retirees, quite frankly. So I'm willing to sit on it to help us keep a quorum, but if we do get some volunteers, I'm happy to come off just for the sake of having more voices, because I don't want us dominating the committee for all intents and purposes.
okay. I mean, we could certainly still continue
Yeah.
with advertising, and
Yep.
if someone steps forward, then we can revisit.
Yeah, let's do that. That's
So,
crazy.
so we're gonna make a motion tonight?
Yeah.
That we're gonna,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's up
so
to you.
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion to appoint Beth Coughlin to the Personnel Board, and we'll go with that one first, and then, or do you want to rescind the prior? Should
Well,
we
we've got a
re-
resignation, so we've got a slot.
But the point is, should we rescind the prior appointments of
Oh.
the hybrid versus me and you for the 6 months? Should we rescind that and then
Make him
each
1
a
year. Yeah.
I think that would be cleaner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll make a motion to rescind the prior vote of the board to have Beth Coughlin and Richard Chafee each for a term of 6 months.
Second, well,
Yeah. Second. All in favor? Aye. And so the new motion will
the
be,
motion would be to,
For Mr. Chafee for a full membership, and Ms. Coughlin for a full membership.
So I'll make a motion that Beth Coughlin be appointed to the Personnel Board for a full year.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and then I'll make a motion to appoint Rich Chafee for the next year, or until June 30th, I guess, of 2025.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Question on a technicality, because I know select board meetings are recorded. I'm assuming that those meetings won't need to be recorded.
They'll have to be recorded, probably.
We can talk to Jacob to set it up. I don't think
Yeah.
it's
I mean, it's just the
required.
audio, the little audio
Okay.
recording. I mean, I can hit play
Yeah,
or record.
yeah.
Just gotta.
Unless
I saw
you
the
wanna
device
come
the other
in.
night, so,
I'll give you the training.
yeah. Hit button, turn into box. Got it. I can handle it.
All right,
Just tell me where I'm hiding the recorders and we'll be good.
Votes.
so are we good on that?
Yes.
All right, discuss police station installation project, additional expense proposal.
I think we just cancel this whole contract with this company. They're just gouging us. They want it, it was almost $18,000 for the original contract, then an additional $1,500, and now they want an additional $6,400. We're getting up near the cost of what the project can be done for, not just the engineering. I mean, this is crazy. They're just, it's a big city firm that's just taking advantage of a little town. I have a call into the head carpentry department at Tantasco to see if that's a project that they would be willing to take a look at. The biggest part of the project is taking down the suspended ceiling and then putting the suspended ceiling back. The actual contract for what they did, they're just gouging us.
So let me ask you a question. Do we have any room, given, I mean, the scope of this, when we send it, was it sent out to bid?
No.
If it was, I can find no evidence of it.
Okay.
I had spoke to Ron about that some time ago, that I don't think it met the procurement laws
No,
based
that's
on.
true. It was under what was required.
Well, anything over 10,000 is required, and it was 18,000. Anything over 10,000
You're
would
right.
require
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
written quotes, and
Yeah.
we cannot find anything to do with that. And it was before my time, but I'm not in favor of this at all.
So what have they provided us for the money that has been spent?
More
already?
bills.
Yeah, honestly, not a whole heck of a lot. If you think about the original contract, the 18,000 Mr. Chafee had mentioned,
Yep.
the scope of that particular expense was project management, bid review, bid consulting.
And have they done any of that work yet?
No, because
Is there any ripcord fee to this, to
Yeah.
just?
I think based on not meeting the procurement laws, I think we could cancel the contract immediately.
But it is a signed contract that it was endorsed, I believe, by Chairman Reagan. He was the actual signatory, which I think certainly clouds it. I wouldn't want to just cancel it without advice from town
I would
council.
make a motion that you look into it with town council and look to see how we can get out of it and start over.
And with regards to the $1,900, I guess, add-on, if you will, that we conceptually approved approximately a month ago, I don't believe there was ever an invoice or a contract signed specific to that. So we might not be in the hook for that 1,900. It was really more of a conceptual agreement because we were waiting on the final drawings and specs, which is what we have before us this evening, the $6,400.
What I don't understand is I thought this was included in the scope of the original work.
I looked and it was not. In fact, I do
Yeah,
have,
we were all told that this was handling everything.
Yeah. But, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So,
yeah, the original scope, this is from a February 7th contract, was project management, reviewing invitations to bid, attending the bid walkthrough, answering requests for information during the bid process, review of the actual bids.
you know what though? So here's one of the things I really want to say about this. If they said they were overviewing the bid process, there's no way they could do that without having project specifications. So to come back to us 6 months later saying that
Well,
they need project specifications.
And that's what so I had just talked to him because I just learned about all this. And what I'm assuming might have happened here, Kelly probably didn't think about it because we already had all the specs for the design for this. So she probably figured, why do we need to spec it back out when we already have it?
Oh, from the original.
Right, from the original bill.
And we did find the original drawings, the original specifications.
Okay. So,
And what do they want to charge us for that?
another
Six-
$6,400.
6,400.
Yeah.
So that would
It's
bring
kind
the
of,
total.
I feel like a slap in the face, especially when we already have this stuff they could take a look at. Shouldn't be all that difficult to
Right.
recreate.
So, I'll make a motion. Yeah, so did you already make the
I did
motion?
make a motion.
So you've got a second.
What was your motion?
To refer this to town council to see if we can just
Yeah.
cancel the contract.
And you second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, as a follow-up, let's assume that town council advice is that, yes, we can wiggle out of it, or at least partially wiggle out. The next question I would have is with regards to specs for this particular portion, the, I guess, reinstallation or the reinstallation of the installation, how would we like to handle that?
I'd like to just hold until we get the answer, and then we'll kind of regroup.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, yeah,
That'd be
the other option would be, I think, is, you know what? It's not that hard to say, we have an X square foot building. This was the specifications of the original insulation, because we have that.
Yep.
Here's the current condition, attached photos, ready, set, bid. That's a
Fair enough.
totally legal way to put out the project requirements in the
Agreed,
system.
yeah.
Okay? So we can send this out to bid for, and while
I'm
we're
just
working.
concerned about that because
while we're
I'm
working
not,
out-
I'm
right.
not
Well-
versed in that
I
part.
think it's a pretty simple process, like
Yeah.
Beth said,
Yeah.
we already
Yeah.
have the specs, that was original.
Yeah.
But if we just table it until we figure out what town council says, that would give me an opportunity to speak with
Yeah.
the vocational director at the school, or technical director at the school, as well as the head.
So,
And-
so
and
my
I'm
only,
fine with that.
my only, I would discuss that with the chief beforehand, because can you just have the kids working?
They're gonna have to vacate each area while the work is being done, and I did speak to the chief
Oh,
about the
okay.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
chief
think
is aware.
I think my thought is put together the procurement package while the discussion is going on with town council, because we're getting close enough to winter,
Mm-hmm.
that honestly, we'd probably prefer to try to get this work done
Quickly.
quickly.
I mean, the bulk of the work
Right.
is not a requirement right away. The bulk of it's there. It's probably less than 3% of the building that has the insulation problem. I'm not saying that I want to kick it down the road a year. I'm just saying just for the short term. Maybe Ron will have an answer from town council next week.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But I think we could start working on
Yeah,
the specs that would
absolutely.
go out. We just
Yep.
don't hit send until we
Yep.
know what we're doing.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And also as a reminder, we do have a $60,000 earmark for this particular project through Senator Durant, and that has been approved, and it is sitting in the state budget,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
Perfect.
So we can send it out in good conscience to bid too, because of the fact that we have the money sitting there.
Correct.
So, yeah, okay.
Discuss modifications to select board public commentary policy.
Yes, if you recall, we, at our last meeting, we had agreed and approved the public commentary policy for the board. At the request of the chair, I did run it by town council. They did have some minor modifications. In particular, they were not comfortable with part of the phrasing where there was discretion from the chair to exceed the 2-minute limit. The town council had indicated that whenever you start to introduce discretion, you're opening the door wide open for complaints, confusion, so on and so forth. So as recommended by town council, I removed that portion from the policy for those same reasons.
And what was the original language?
Excuse me?
What was the original language?
Just gave
Give me
you,
a second.
it gave you an opportunity to give someone more time. But in
Oh, but
doing
what they're
that-
saying is
and-
I can't do that.
Yeah, you should, because everyone should be treated fairly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the portion was, well, I'll use number 5. Each agenda item comment period shall not exceed 10 minutes, and each speaker shall not exceed 2 minutes unless directly permitted by the select board chair. That was strongly recommended to be removed by town council for those reasons. Discretion enters and confusion and gray zone, and it indicated that if you're going to have a 2-minute limit, keep it to a 2-minute limit.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the new policy as written regarding public commentary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any All right,
Okay,
back to host community agreements.
back to host community agreement.
Here, let me give,
And do we have the template, a copy of the template printed up now?
So we'll give you each copy, if they live in, I have one extra there. I'll just go on the chair there, yeah.
What's that? Dennis, it hurts me to watch you, please.
oh. We all gotta sign that.
This is written on Kim.
That's for.
It actually
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
like the template is for everything, because you just basically
Check
check the
off a
block on
box.
which one it is.
Let me just sign that real quick.
There's something about that paper the pen don't like. I don't understand why number 7 on page 3 they objected to, because it indicates in the template that we can collect for up to 9 years post final licensing.
Where was that on this?
Page 6 of the template. So them disallowing it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because we were only talking 8 years in the original agreement.
Unless they think that a typical establishment takes a year to stand up past the final license, which would mean that it would then potentially exceed the period in the template. So, I think what we could do is if we, and I'm curious, right, I think we could change that to state, Inc. Just change that to state instead of
So
commences
here's
operations.
instead of going through this whole thing, here's a question. Did you talk to town council about, what if we just did, what's the downside to just doing the template?
I could do that. I just know from my previous discussions with town council, they're not a fan of the template. their belief, as, I guess, as you could see from our original HCA, is it doesn't afford and offer as much protection to the town as they would feel comfortable with.
But it seems like some of that stuff that they put in is getting crossed out. And weren't they the ones working with the CCC on these templates?
Well, so they have a whole bunch of so what, my understanding of it from Nicole, and I could be inaccurate, my understanding was that they, along with a number of other law firms that have worked these, submitted their recommendations to the CCC while the template was under consideration. So my concern in some of the guidance that they're giving us is that they've now submitted that as part of the process for recommending what needed to be in the host community agreements. They've now submitted it with, they basically used our legal fees to submit that template again to the state, right?
Yeah, I'm a little miffed in the amount of money that we spent
Right.
for them to bring us here.
Right, to now actually be recommending that, no, let's take a third time as a charm. Suddenly the CCC is gonna have a different opinion than they had the first two times that they saw the language.
Right.
Right, that's my concern, is that I'd like to salvage as much of the work we did as possible, but I think it's disingenuous to give people the impression that the third time is gonna be a charm, submitting the same thing back to the state. I think we're safer to take a look. That's the reason why I wanna go through it line by line. We don't have to do it tonight. We can just talk about it
Yeah.
conceptually or.
I was just trying to
for a certain
avoid
period of
that.
time. I would love to avoid that, trust me. I have spent way too much
Yeah,
time living in this thing
Yeah.
at this point, in the attempt to try to strike exactly the balance you're talking about, protect the community, right? But also stay compliant with what the state allows for this type of work, right? So I'm just not a fan of trying to resubmit the same thing that's already been rejected functionally twice. And they're not stating that it was rejected twice, but it was basically rejected twice, because it was submitted as part of the input to the process.
Yeah.
Then it was submitted as our HCA. I'd actually like to hear back from KP as to how many of these that they've submitted in the last 6 months have come back the same way. Because if they've been rejected for all of the communities that they've put some of these provisions in, then again, I think we're just putting good money after bad.
Yeah, I think clearly there's a difference of opinion between the CCC and KP law with regards to the statutes.
I think the problem is you can drive a truck through the statutes.
Yeah.
So I work on a government contract today. One of the running jokes relative to the government contract that I work on is that there's contract language you could drive a truck through. The best thing about my contract is there's a contract language you can drive a truck through. The worst thing about the contract I work under is there's contract language that you can drive a truck through.
I believe they refer to it as welfare for lawyers.
Yeah, I think so. So, I think, my recommendation on page 3, section 4 would be, instead of 8 years from the date of commencement operations, we take the language from the template, which is basically may be collected up to 9 years from, I think, final approval is what the language is that they have.
with Mr. Sosby here, should we not ask him if he knows why that was?
I'd be happy to hear from him if he has any idea why any of these were explicitly rejected, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Good
Good evening.
So, in regards to that one, the specific section regarding the expiration of the community impact fees, I think that what was in the HCA executed by the town at Sun Fusions may not have actually meant something different than what's in the template, but the language was different. And the CCC, I think,
Is what it's their language?
it's not their job to sort of figure out does it mean the same thing.
Okay.
I think they're kind of picky about they sort of, the reviewers have what they're looking for, and they have the model language, which is exemplified by the model HCA template. And if it doesn't match up, they say it's non-compliant. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, because one thing that worries me about attempting to conform the executed HCA to the CCC's objections and their highlights is that there's no guarantee that the CCC won't have additional objections after submission of a revised HCA. The CCC is notorious for not showing all their cards at once. You submit a document in response to their requests, and they come back and say, oh, here's an additional change we require, right? Which often is not a big deal unless you have to go to a town and have the town select board approve every change every time. And then that turns into a process that can drag out indefinitely. So I would strongly invite the board to consider simply using the model HCA template as was presented as one of the options here.
Which is kind of what I was.
Is that kind of where you're leaning?
Well, that's where I was going with that.
So let's go through what the model HCA template has fundamentally. So we've got a lot of definitions, correct? Okay, and then it comes out with the all the compliance requirements.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Can I ask a question just so I understand the process a little better?
Sure.
All right.
Well, actually,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
it's your meeting, sorry, sir.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I heard you list 5 things that the lawyer said that were recommended, and you've gone to one of them, but I didn't hear a vote.
So,
Or are you voting afterwards? That's all. I didn't
Do you want me to
understand
explain?
why.
I don't think you need to, right? Yeah, go ahead. If you have,
So the lawyer recommended, resubmitting, going with a new one, scrapping the whole thing, or else starting
Right.
from fresh. And I didn't hear a vote taken on any of those 5 options that you originally started.
no, we had a discussion.
Oh, okay, all right.
We had a discussion. So there wasn't necessarily a vote,
Okay.
so. Do you need a motion?
I don't know, do we?
So
I don't
think we've really, and I think the reason why you didn't hear a motion and you didn't hear a vote was that I think we're still trying to consider, like, I could
What
make a
about the
actually,
options
let me make a motion and let's
Okay.
get it, and we can get a second for discussion, and this
Sure.
can be part of the discussion. Because I
Sure.
think fundamentally, procedurally, right, what this constitutes is, we started the discussion without having a motion on the table. So I'm gonna make a motion that we do a public review of the template, as a first step towards deciding what option to take relative to the HCA.
Second. So any discussion?
Well, okay,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. all right, so,
And also in fairness to the board, neither myself nor the board have had an opportunity to actually thoroughly review the template. So in essence, you're kind of watching a working session, for lack of a
Right.
better term.
yeah, so fundamentally, what we're trying to decide here is we need enough information to make a good decision about what are the 4 options we want to pursue.
I thought I
Okay.
missed this stuff.
Nope, so.
Okay, thank you.
So fundamentally, there's a huge amount of information well beyond what we discussed relative to the SIFs, which I think we're actually less concerned about than, it's the reason why less of our agreement was on the SIFs is because that was in the spaces that we're mostly concerned with. Let's see here. So, I want to make a note regarding the host community template, and I think a number of you have copies of it, right? Versus what we put into place. And I want to make some points here, right? So there's nothing in this template about water usage. There's nothing in this template about best practices and how to resolve problems relative to, you know, complaints of odor and putting something in place to hold everybody accountable, okay? I know there were a lot of concerns expressed about the host community agreement and that there seemed to be a perception that the select board was allowing Sun Fusions to walk away with the store, okay? But I just want to make a point right now that, and some of those provisions at least survived first pass coming back from the state. Right, does everybody in this room understand that? Okay, just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Right, and one of the other provisions that was put in here was that functionally this agreement precluded Sun Fusions from putting the balance of their property in 61A or some of the other, like, tax mitigating standards, okay? That's another thing the state has said is basically verboten for us to do.
I mean, there really isn't.
I mean, my concern is, right, and if I remember correctly, it was one of the reasons why I conceded with town council that I didn't want to just use the template because it came out the week that we were finalizing the first agreement. There's nothing in there.
There's nothing in here.
There's zero protections for the community other than the collection of
I think this is my own, maybe I'm wrong with this, but I think the protections are the community, being planning board, board of health, all the other committees. They're the ones, this is,
Right, so
this is, yeah, welcome to do business with us, and then
Yep.
now you have the right to talk to everyone else.
Yep, 100%.
That's certainly the impression I got. It's, if you compare it side by side with the original host community agreement, it's, I don't want to say it's night and day, but the original one is obviously far stricter, has far more, I guess, protections, for lack of a
Right,
better
and
term.
there's some people that would say probably that this was an overstep by the select board on the other boards.
Yeah,
that
because we're
have-
basically
'cause we are putting
saying
some.
planning, board of health, we're taking what they should be doing. I don't know. Am I incorrect thinking that?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Who's supposed to enforce the HCA?
select board.
Yeah, I guess you could call the town in general, because it's just, obviously, it's a select board acting on behalf of the
Yeah, as the
town.
executive committee of the town,
Correct.
so.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't at these original negotiations, so I don't
Right.
understand.
How we got to where we're at.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that fundamentally the way that it worked was that KP brought me a template of what they had used predominantly in other communities. I mean, just for the sake of the process, right?
Yep.
I asked some questions, removed a bit of language, added a bit of language that I thought was important, especially relative, I mean, one of my big concerns was water use by virtue of the fact that, not just because it was marijuana, but because I know that there's been some problems south of the river relative to people's wells and the like, right?
I don't.
We kind of went back and forth, that went over to Sun Fusions, they added some language, removed some language, and we kind of iterated through it until we had something that was acceptable to both parties, mostly. So, or as I put it, made nobody 100% happy, so. I think I brought back some of the drafts a couple of times. I don't know how much you had time to go through
No.
anything. When we signed the original one, I had softened the indemnification language before we signed it, and then KP took me to task for softening the indemnification language. It got pulled whole hog by the state out of there, so for what it's worth. I see what Mr. Sosby says about that they look for exact language matches, or I don't know, maybe it was you that said they look for exact language matches because like there's an area for us to put in local permits, fees, applications, information in the template, which is basically the same as the company accepting that as long as we charge usual and customary fees, that you agree to pay usual and customary fees, right? So we put that language in kind of as a blanket, and according to this, we have to enunciate every fee that they might possibly have to pay based on the entirety of the process, and if we get it wrong, then it sounds like they wouldn't be obligated to pay that particular permit fee,
I agree. I think that's a correct interpretation.
right?
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, I'm looking also at this, you know, so the next steps according to CCC are only 3. The parties can correct the non-compliant issues.
Yep.
And amend it and send it in, waive it all together, or use the agreement.
Right.
And waiving, even in their own form, they're more or less, if you read between the lines, they're saying, you know, proceed very carefully down this road.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yep.
Town bylaws don't allow, they allow manufacturing facilities in the rural residential area. I know in previous meetings we said this was a miss. So now that we're revisiting the HCA, is that
That's a
consideration?
planning board thing.
Yeah.
So it's actually a planning board thing, and it's also what's the definition of manufacturing. So any amount of extraction, so it depends on whether you're defining manufacturing as like things like actually producing edibles on site is manufacturing, or whether just like the strip down of the plant is considered manufacturing. You understand what I'm saying? So
Manufacturing,
so-
or it's manufacturing? I don't.
so that's the question, is that the general manufacturing is not allowed in rural residential. I think we have to check, I think on the.
It says specifically
Yeah.
marijuana manufacturing on the bylaw, it's not allowed.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything we can address in the
Yeah.
HCA. It'll, I mean, that's a.
That's
planning-
something that would get sorted out via the planning board and the ZBA, so. Do you want to recognize somebody else from the floor?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see.
I just have a question about the template. So I know the HCA's original ones were carrying a little bit of weight. It sounded like because, there were insufficient bylaws or whatever to deal with concerns that the select board had, like water usage and stuff. With this current template, those things are getting removed, so would bylaws be considered to replace what the HCA was kind of doing before? And if so, would these fall with this template format? I know you're just reading it, so. But I just wanted to bring the concept forward to you guys.
So, I mean, that would be an approach. It would give an appearance of dealing in bad faith. So. But, that's. I don't know that there's any precedent for that statewide.
I was going to say, I think part of the problem is since this is such a new process, there really is no case law for these gray areas. So to a certain extent, we're trailblazing.
If I may, the town already has comprehensive
Marijuana
marijuana zoning bylaws that were enacted relatively recently. And they address things like odor and water usage. And I was present in this room when PP Law came and gave a spiel about why the HCA should duplicate the authority of the planning board, for instance. Not take it away, not fill a hole or a gap in the bylaws, but to duplicate the power And I think that's important to remember, that there are already bylaws and rules that centrifuges will have to follow regarding all of these things. I think the issue is, does the select board also want to have the power to enforce those issues that the planning board will be enforcing? Now, having said that, I think centrifuges might be reluctant to go down the path of the Model HCA if it would mean that this is a longer, less efficient process. I don't think that centrifuges would object to amending the executed HCAs in the manner that the CCC objected, if that might be a smoother process.
And I think what you're getting at is, what my other thought is we just take out the highlighted spots and resubmit it.
Yeah, I mean, I would take out the
Now,
highlight.
odor,
I think
odor wasn't highlighted.
it wasn't highlighted. So my thought would be, and it's not quite just take out the sections. I think the one other change I would do is where they highlighted the impact fee language.
Just take this language and
Take
put
those
that
two
there.
bullets and put that fundamentally,
Yeah.
just pick it up out of their template and put it there, right? And then, and I know there's a risk that they'll come back with something else that they don't like out of it, right? But, you know, I think there's a couple of things, and Ron, if you can take some notes, and frankly, if I need to play secretary on this and send you a draft.
I'll give it a shot.
Or you can, right? So I take out, if I was just going rogue and doing this myself, right? I would take out 7 on page 3. I would take from the template on page 6. I would drop in 5 and 6 from that, right? And that would replace that. It would become 6 and would become 7 and 8, or VII and VIII, and then everything else would move down 1, right? We'd go to the consulting fees and costs would just have to get pulled out fundamentally.
Yeah, I understand why that got taken out.
Yeah. That section under local property taxes gets pulled out, right? The local permitting, I think starting where it says in accordance with, even though they only highlighted from the may require the company, I would say in accordance with the procedures set out and whatever general law from that point forward needs to come out, and what needs to go in place of that would be there on page 7, they're generally occurring fees. We need to outline, we need to figure out all of the different permit and board fees that would be expected from the normal process, right? And lay them out explicitly. And then, take out the company shall comply with the requested measures of the company's sole expense. And then take out the indemnification. And I think that's it. I think then we would be done. Mr. Sosby, did you follow where I was going with that?
Not entirely.
Okay, do you want me to repeat myself?
I'm just looking at my resume. Where did you ask to make it a change
Okay.
in this HCA regarding the generally occurring fees?
Okay, under local permitting. So under local permitting, there's a bunch of yellow at the tail end of that, where basically it was saying that you wouldn't fight with us over paying normal fees. And the way it's phrased in the model HCA is it's more of an affirmative statement of this is the limit to which the fees that the town would be authorized to charge you for general purposes. So it would basically be take out their yellow, but put in the section for generally occurring fees and list the normal planning board fees, the normal building permit fees, the normal, everything that's currently on our schedule, we would just put in, we would take out the section that says, hey, you agree not to ask for waivers on the fees, and we would just put in, hey, you agree to pay the normal, usual and customary fees associated with the stuff that's part of the process of getting business in town. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that's all I was saying there, so. And then we'd have to take out the company shall comply with requested measures at company sole expense out. But it seems like they didn't necessarily have a problem with us at least having a discussion about issues and coming up with a plan, and then we can always fight later over who gets to pay for it, right? So, so I think we could just pull the yellow language out there, right?
You asked me.
I would recommend anything that the CCC highlighted, I think should be removed from
Right.
the
Right, so I'm just suggesting that there's some areas where it would leave a gap that's not quite appropriate, and we just drop the language back into it.
I think the CCC is sending us all a very strong message. And it's doing a lot to try to avoid hearing it, but safety law is not exactly a science enthusiast. And they get rejected a lot. The idea of resubmitting bad work that we overpaid for is so what you're doing seems the wisest course to take what we've got, including the restrictions we put on you that they don't.
Right.
And I accept them. And we resubmit the document without the highlighted things, replace only with language from the template.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
And
saying.
then for retail, you use the template as it is. Check the box for retail at the bottom and submit it in whole without any further consideration of the order.
Yeah.
Because they have told us what their gold standard is. They have made it clear that they are pro-cannabis and they're not going to follow a law of restriction that doesn't already exist.
Well, and I hate to say it, I hate to put it this way, the proposed retail site I'm not as concerned about, because you functionally don't have any neighbors. Your neighbors are the racetrack, a sand pit, and a solar farm, right? So.
A liquor store.
And a liquor store. So, you're in the right neighborhood there. So, yes, you will have to get a dirt bike, but yeah, anyway. That's just for the adrenaline junkies that aren't satisfied by either the marijuana or the alcohol, so. I don't know that I object to that.
No.
I think that's actually a pretty reasonable
Yeah.
supposition, so, but that's where I would, that's where I would go with it, that would keep everything.
I mean, my
that they
easy
have in
route
here.
was just doing the model.
Right,
But like you said, there's things in this that
right.
give us a little more control.
Right, and
So
you
let's
can
just do
argue
this
either
and
way,
take
is
out
that
the-
they would accept the template, but then
Yeah.
if we made any modifications to the template, we're at risk, but if we resubmit this, because it's one of their options with the edits, then
Right.
we're pretty safe.
Yeah.
You've got somebody on the floor, I don't know if you
Right.
recognize.
I have a question.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of work went into making this agreement. It went through town council, went before the board. Why are we so quick to just sweep it under the rug, get rid of the language that's in there that we felt needed to be there, and just agree and move forward? Should we not be exploring this a little bit further than just agreeing to this?
So, the state said no.
The Attorney General said
The
to
Attorney
cross this
General of
stuff
the
out.
state-
Your attorneys are telling you they disagree with that, and that's who you guys look to for
So,
contracting. Yes.
that is correct, okay? And I don't know if you heard my statement earlier in this meeting, what I'm frustrated with, okay, is that our town council participated with the state and submitted all of the language, plus some, okay, to the state recommending that it go on the template. That language was functionally rejected by the state when they generated their template without any of the language submitted by KP Law to incorporate it into the template. We have now resubmitted that language to the state, and actually, when you think about it, our hit rate was pretty good. Okay,
Yeah,
most of
okay.
it stood, right? I mean, we've got something like, what, 20, I need my glasses, sorry. Okay. only, I apologize, it's only 15 pages, right? We have like 6 substitutions that, or 6 areas where the state has said, we're not going to accept the language.
Right.
Okay, I know we've got 30 people in the room right now, but we've got another 3,000 people in town paying taxes, and I don't know if the other 3,000 people want us using their tax money to fight the state in court to get them to accept the language that they've rejected twice already,
And I agree.
okay?
I agree, it's not a fight in court for it, but the protections that you felt were needed when it was drafted,
Right,
we need to make sure those protections are still in for
right, it serves,
people in that area.
and
I
I'm-
think
and I'm sorry, sir,
I
that-
think a lot of those are still in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, so
That's my
that,
concern,
so I'm gonna,
the areas are being protected.
Yeah.
Right.
We're the ones that are gonna be affected by it.
right, so let me read off to you again the things that we're substituting the language on, okay? So the things that were rejected by the state was they didn't like the term, they didn't like the period of collection of the community impact fees. I don't think anybody in this room cares about that, okay? So we're gonna take the language out of the template, drop it in there, okay? Consulting fees and costs, okay? State said you need to yank that out. Does, nobody's gonna, in here cares about that, right? The not applying for tax abatements, I don't like it, but the state says we can't tell them they can't do it. I wish I could put that on virtually everybody in town that sets up a business, although, to be honest, it's still a benefit to the community, because you know what, if he starts growing marijuana and puts everything else in 61A, it means nobody can use that for anything but open space. Some people love that idea, some people hate that idea, but that's fundamentally what the state's putting on us, okay? It still doesn't take away any of the neighborhood protections, okay? If we had wanted additional consultants relative to local permitting, we originally put the cost of that on Sun Fusions. If we choose to request above and beyond engineering for requirements, we can't put the burden of that on Sun Fusions according to the state. So it's a money thing, again, okay? The only thing that is a little bit on the protection side that's in here is they didn't say anything about our process of like a public hearing, and if there's complaints in the neighborhood. They left all the rest of the verbiage in there. The only thing that the state officially disallowed was us making it be at the company's sole expense that verifying an issue using an independent engineer would be at the company expense versus the town expense, okay? So, but it leaves the rest of that process and protections in place around complaints, okay? And then the only other thing, right, that got pulled out of here was fundamentally an expectation, all of the wastewater control stayed in, no yellow lining on that, okay?
Like it said some of the water restrictions that haven't.
No, what I said is there's nothing like that in the template, which is a reason to stay with this and just drop some of the language in the template, okay? And then the last thing is indemnification, which basically said that if anybody sued the town for the fact that they were doing business, that the company would cover all the costs. So they said that's not fair, is what the state said. So those are the only things that we're talking about changing tonight, and we're gonna leave everything else in place.
As long as we still have the protection in place, that's my concern.
Right. So, but that's what we're talking about, and apparently Sun Fusions is willing to at least consider that because they think it's the shortest distance between 2 points and getting an agreement that'll get through the state.
Good.
For the board's consideration, in the template, there's section 4, compliance F. It's on page 6, very top section. This agreement does not affect the authority of the municipality to issue or deny permits, licenses, or other approvals under the statutes and regulations of the Commonwealth or the bylaws, local laws, zoning, and ordinances of the municipality. Nor does this agreement affect the municipality's ability to enforce any applicable law. With that wording in mind, there is some language in the host community agreement that mentions a particular timestamp or referring to the zoning bylaws and town bylaws. I believe it was the day that the HCA was signed, was
maybe, I don't have the HCA in front of me, but one of our big concerns was the express intent of freezing the applicable bylaws to a particular date the HTA was signed. And reading this section here, I just want to make sure that this compliance section here, any wording HTA is not taking any authority away from the town to define bylaws.
I think that was actually something that town council was very explicit about, that even though that we had put a date certain in there for the intent of this agreement, it did not impact the town's ability to enforce future regulations or bylaws.
So is there any issue with taking that wording out for the date timestamp from the HCA? Because I just want to make sure that it's clear that to all parties that that timestamp means nothing.
So I'm a little uninclined to change anything that wasn't called out by the state, because any edit that we do opens us up to a future rejection. So they didn't take issue with it at the time. I'm not really inclined to pursue it. I don't know where you
No, I
stand
agree
on
with
it.
that.
So,
I have a question, sorry. So,
Good.
how much money has the town spent on submitting these applications?
$9,000 last I knew.
For all, 2 submissions?
Well,
It's two submissions?
we also received a payment for $7,500
yeah.
for the application. And we've spent $9,000.
Considering another $4,500 application, or is it?
Oh, no, you can't get another application fee.
I guess you're resubmitting, but it's like a no fee, or you're.
No, the state doesn't, there's no fee to the state for us. We're talking legal fees that has been associated with this.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So us resubmitting this to the state doesn't incur a charge, other than any cost that is for KP to review the edits, which I think one of the things we're gonna do is do the edits in-house and then send it to KP so that we're not paying them for typing. And the other proposal before us is to functionally for the retail, take the template, check off retail, and approve it as is, which frankly,
Right.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But,
I have a question. If you guys resubmit the HCA, can the CCC then make new edits?
absolutely.
So then, because I thought the CCC only gave 3 options and only a certain amount of, I guess, resubmittals, right? Could we resubmit 10 times, or could we only resubmit
Yeah, it didn't say any.
twice and then either go with the template or wait, right? Or can we just keep resubmitting?
I mean, you've probably been through this before. You would just keep resubmitting, I would assume.
Right, so it's, and just to be clear, it's really, it's the applicant that is submitting it.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And so if the CCC objects to something that's submitted, they respond with a request for information. And then you respond to that RFI, and there can be some back and forth like that to can keep on going to some extent, if that's possible.
Okay, so if he sticks with the original ACA, then he, instead of the template, then he could get some more edits back. Okay.
Well, yeah, his
hopefully we
application,
don't.
his application would get kicked back to, functionally to the town, saying.
The town, yeah, I just wanted to know the difference between of just, I guess at this point, going with the template instead of having the edits possibly.
I
Well,
mean,
the
if we-
template isn't as strong as what this is.
Is, I know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, the safe punt for the select board would frankly just be submit the template and be done with
Template,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was one of the options before us, before this whole thing was drafted in the first
Drafted,
place.
Yeah.
So,
We don't disagree with that.
yeah, no, figured. So, but I'm just inclined to make the edits that,
Yeah.
that I stated and just send it back, mostly what was there, right? Only address the things that were highlighted by the state, because I'm not gonna try to edit anything else and then wind up trying to explain it. So, but do you want, did I give you enough detail?
I think I can give it a shot on Monday. I'll try to incorporate all the changes, perform the deletions, and then what I can do is certainly run it, well, obviously, I won't send a copy to Rich to review, but I'll send it to both of you to review.
Okay.
Make sure I've captured the edits and the concepts involved. I guess the other question I would have is, do we want to run it by KP Law?
Well, I think at the end, isn't that what you're saying? We're gonna type it all up, let them look at it, and
So, I think,
I'm just,
I mean, what's gonna happen is
from-
they're gonna come back to us and say, what do you do? And we told you not to do this.
Tisk, tisk, shake their head.
So,
But I
if you
could,
want, if you wanna let Nicole Costanza tell, you know, call and scream at me again, she's welcome to do that, but I'm not paying her to do it. She needs to do it on her own nickel.
after 5 PM.
yeah.
What I could do is, I guess, maybe manage the expectations of KP Law, explain the rationale behind the deletions and the modifications, and then have them review it with that premise in
So I
mind.
tell you what, why don't I go ahead and give you a motion? My motion is that we make the substitutions as discussed, leveraging the vocabulary and the template for doing a one-for-one substitution, with the exception of the indemnification clause that we have no
That has
alternative.
You're
to
gonna
be
have to
back.
slow down a little bit on that, okay?
All right.
Well,
The
we can,
substitution
it's
says
being
discuss.
recorded.
Right, so the motion fundamentally is to do the substitutions as discussed during the discussion period of this meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, that's the motion,
okay.
right? And if anybody wants the details, it's basically the process to follow is to substitute template language in lieu of those highlighted areas as discussed, right? Understanding that we're gonna have to fully withdraw the indemnification section, okay? And that the resulting document get reviewed by the members of the select board, any comments returned to Ron, and that what we will consider the final, that will provide it to KP with explicit instructions, just to basically make sure that we didn't get anything grammatically incorrect, and send it over to Mr. Sosby. So, and so that you don't actually need our approval on the final document prior to getting it into the signature process, and then we just need to put something on the calendar to sign.
Mhm.
Unless we wanna go ahead and vote tonight to sign it out of conference, which would basically be sit on your desk and we come by.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
So this means you're not gonna discuss any of the other options, and we don't get any input on any of the other options? That KP said there were 5 different options?
Well, you can go back through the options, but the option was basically submit.
Well, one of them was number 5, was pretty much scrap it, stop it.
Well, I don't think it was stop it, I think
It was to start from scratch.
It absolutely was, it was to null and void.
Yeah, but then,
No,
I don't think it was null and void and don't enter into an agreement, because we,
Well, actually, that was, I guess, on the far end of the spectrum, was the town absolutely had
doesn't
the ability and the right
but then we
to
would
walk
be,
away.
then we would have an issue at hand with that, I would
no, we
think.
won't, because
No, not according to KP Law. KP Law said the town had the right to, quote-unquote, walk away from the project.
and I propose that, walk away. There's already been problems.
There's also a lot of residents, though, that want this.
Right, but it's been very, you haven't been very transparent as far as advertising it around towns. I was at the town election just the other day, and most people, when I mentioned it, said, no, I didn't realize that was going in. Okay, so, as I handed out flyers, so it really is not widely known what is going on. Okay, people did vote for the law because they were told that multiple meetings, we were going to get sued if we didn't have a cannabis law. And so I feel like we should do, to be honest with you, take a look at business practices, take a look at the permitting that's gone on. Instead of answering the Conservation Commission, they would get right with a lawsuit. So you've got probably 2 lawsuits pending now. Is this the type of person you want to do business with? Someone that doesn't get their way and immediately sues you, instead of working with you.
We can't take that into consideration.
No. So we can't.
So I propose number 5, scrap the whole thing. And if you really want to know what the 3,000 people in town feel, send out a vote, or send out.
It was
have
voted.
a public
Yeah,
meeting.
so-
You know, I just don't feel like the liaison meetings worked out. They should be in public. They should be open meetings.
So you've got a motion.
Yeah, second.
Okay.
I was gonna say, there is a motion on the table. The last 30 minutes has been discussion.
Discussion.
It is to
Make the
delete,
substitution.
make delete and substitutions based on the contract that was submitted.
So,
If I may add that, I would ask that the board agree tonight to, if the edits are made as proposed now, that the board vote to sign it as it is and not have to put it on another agenda.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. You do not have to do this decision tonight, is that correct?
No.
Okay, so I would take a step back and I would give it a lot of consideration. So you're hearing what the townspeople in this town are discussing. I think you listen to them, take a step back, and then have another meeting, have another discussion. There's no reason to rush into this.
I have a comment. On my previous point of the town bylaw not allowing marijuana manufacturing in rural residential. I mean, I know you said it was a planning board thing, but why would we do the HCA, agree to do an HCA that we know should, under our own bylaw, be rejected? I don't understand that point.
Unless I'm wrong, the HCA is just a handshake agreement that the town will work with them and give them right to work with the other boards in the town.
yeah.
If he doesn't
Yeah,
make it past there,
If they basically say, look, you can't do manufacturing on that site, then that's what the planning board's determination is gonna be.
To me, it's a lot of time and money, and a very clearly written statement that says we cannot do this. But
this is
I understand that it's not your point, but it is your discretion to go forward with this or not, knowing the laws within our town.
I think it's really
But
the
it's
planning
his-
board is the main
It's his
growth.
right to ask for a waiver, so it's the applicant's right to ask for a waiver, even though it's not allowed.
Right.
Any applicant can ask for a waiver to the planning board, and the planning board can say yes or no.
Right.
That's correct, that was on the plan. That is
Yeah, so
correct.
even though the zoning bylaw says no,
No, right.
Yeah.
anybody in town that wants to grow a marijuana facility can go and put in the application and ask the planning board to waive and allow to grow marijuana.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's,
Grow marijuana, it's like
Or, sorry, manufacturer.
yeah, but it doesn't,
Yeah,
whatever
uses.
whatever use you're talking about,
Yes,
if it's a non-conforming use, you can apply for a waiver, and then it's the responsibility of the boards with the purview over that area to make a determination whether to approve the waiver or not. So,
The owner that's going to try and do this is right here.
Mhm.
I'd like to have him say why he wants to put something in that spot. In a residential thing for marijuana Does Brookfield need marijuana? Does the Massachusetts need marijuana? The United States need marijuana in that spot? Why? He could be putting homes there, like everybody else. Why, and he threatens, that's what he'll do, he'll put up a whole bunch of homes. Let him do it. Forget the marijuana. We don't need that in Brookfield.
So,
You want
sir,
to say
sir,
something?
excuse me, but, the comment policy that we just revoted,
Yeah.
one of the things very explicitly is please address the chair or the board. You can't address other people in the room,
Okay.
okay? So let's be
Would you
clear about
ask
that.
the owner if he would like to explain what is going on that he wants to put a marijuana facility in a residential area surrounded by natural water, everybody's got a well, he can pollute, he can do what? Is he that hurting for money that he has to do that?
It's
And does he
his,
love
So-
marijuana that much? You ask him. Go ahead, ask him, I'm asking you, point of order, ask him, why is he doing this? He doesn't need the marijuana, it's not medicinal for him, he's not sick and he needs to have the marijuana, he's just doing it for the money, and that's all it is. Put up a home. and help
Again,
him
sir,
take the marijuana.
please
I'm
address the
sorry.
board.
Ask him, put up homes instead of doing this.
So,
You can't ask him?
no.
no,
Oh, you can't, okay.
I'm choosing not to. So it's
It's-
not the topic, it's not what's
Yeah.
on the agenda for tonight. What's on the agenda for tonight is marijuana and the host community agreement. That's what's on the agenda for tonight.
I have a question, another question of the HCA. So if we basically signed a new HCA as part of this motion we're talking about, or just ratified the same start date?
So the motion that's on the floor right now is to rewrite the existing HCA, substituting the template language for the areas that the state indicated were unacceptable, and resubmitting it, and making it available to be resubmitted by the requester. So yes, that's what's on the table right now. In fact, what I was gonna do as a follow-on motion was to allow it to be out of conference, provided that the language was put into place and it went through KP, that we would sign it out of conference fundamentally. Once it's approved by KP,
Right.
not necessarily reconvening for signature.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, so,
I was going to say, another way to do that is to authorize the chair to sign, so.
There we go.
At that point, the chair has the discretion to
so
make any,
I'll make a follow-on motion for authorizing you to sign once we've got the language ironed out with KP.
If I may, I would just like to put some context on some of the comments that have been made during this discussion period. And I would just like to remind everyone that there is a signed and executed contract signed by both the town and Fusions. That was done many months ago. And in that contract, there's a severability clause. What that clause says is that if there are any provisions in the contract that are found to be illegal, the rest of the contract will be deemed valid. That the parties agree that the rest of the contract should still stand, even if there's some illegal provisions found in it later on. And that's exactly what's happening right here. This is not a process to question whether the contract should be rejected in whole. We're not starting the process over. We're simply now confronted with the information that some of the provisions are illegal, and so those should just be taken out. There shouldn't be any discussion about whether the contract itself should be revoked.
No, actually, never mind, I'll wait.
Then why did KP Law say that you had 5 options and one of them was just to scrap the whole thing? Because the Cannabis Commission rejected the HCA, so if they reject it, he's not going to get the license for it. So therefore, So if you don't sign an HCA, he doesn't get the license, and
There's,
he can't operate it.
there's a lot of state law affiliated with, if we have, and we need to potentially go back to it, but the way that the state law is written, I'm not 100% certain that the walk away is even really supported by state law.
It might be if the cannabis commission is the one that rejected it.
Right, but they rejected it for the town overreach, not because of something relative to the applicant. The rejection was very explicitly over language that they said was inappropriate for the town to include. So the reason for rejection matters. The reason for the rejection is they said that the town put provisions in there that are illegal provisions.
So if the town council is giving you poor advice by saying you can walk away from it, then we need to contact the town council. But I would check and see, because that would be a reason not to have to pay the town council if you find something wrong.
Oh, we've already paid them. Yeah, that's a whole nother.
That's not a bad suggestion right there, frankly. That's not, but that's
I have a question. Could you go with option number 5 based off of the fact that the applicant did not comply with the original HCA, or is the whole HCA, the original HCA, not in effect?
No. The
yeah.
problem the point that Mr. Sosby just made is that functionally speaking, the HCA is in effect because there's a severability clause included in the original HCA. The state has rejected portions of the HCA. Okay.
Yeah.
What they've fundamentally stated is these sections need to be severed from the rest of the contract, or you need to resubmit something that adheres to our template.
Or do the
Or
template,
do a
which
waiver.
really was,
Or do
a
an
waiver.
HCA waiver,
Template,
Yeah.
right?
Or do the waiver.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there's nowhere in there that the state said, oh yeah, and sure, if you don't want this business in your town, feel free to reject the concept of this business in your town. Because both state law and, so fundamentally under state law, because we as a town voted for marijuana.
Yes, yeah,
Right?
I get that.
We actually don't have the option necessarily to just reject applicants because we don't feel like having them in town.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where that becomes a very slippery slope and just, and functionally puts us on the wrong side of the angels if we tried to do that.
We don't have the ability to void it over contract language. We do have the choice to void it over violation of the HCA, correct?
So then we would just have to, we would enforce penalties for whatever that violation is.
But we wouldn't void the contract, even though it's.
The contract gives us a means to hold people accountable to certain standards. That doesn't, it doesn't basically say that you, yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
I mean, most contracts have, okay, if someone breaks the contract, this can become voidable. That's also part of the HCA process.
It is, I brought that up at one of the previous select board meetings, that it was voidable.
I don't think that's really the matter before us today, though. Okay, so term and termination from the original agreement, right? There is terms and terminations for nullifying the contract if they don't commence operations within 18 months of the date of the execution of the agreement. Although we can agree to an 18-month extension for good cause, which means that they've been making legitimate efforts to go through the balance of their permitting process, right? We can terminate for cause by providing written notice to the company in the event that the company violates any laws of the town or the Commonwealth with respect to the operation of the establishment, and such violation remains uncured for 90 days. Okay? Following the town's issuance to the company of a written notice of such violation. If the company fails to make payments that are required under the agreement, and the failure remains uncured for 10 days following the town's issuance to the company of a written notice of such violation, and then any other breach of the agreement which remains uncured for 90 days following the town's issuance to the company a written notice of such violation, or if the company's license is revoked by the CCC once they're actually operating.
So there are provisions for us to avoid it if they don't follow.
Yeah, if they don't follow something, and if it's uncured, if it is something we can prove and it's uncured for 90 days, then we can terminate the agreement. Those are the current nullification. Yep. And again, that's a lot more provisionings for nullifying than what's in the template.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know if they have any nullification options in the template. Yeah, there's nothing in here for anything relative to
Right,
CC.
it wouldn't be in the contract. Sometimes the contract can be nullified if one party did not disclose it. So you're looking for something in the contract, but other contracts, if something was done, I don't know how to explain it correctly, but if one party was deceptive or lied or did something that wasn't quite accurate, it would allow the other party to void the contract. Makes it voidable, not,
Right.
that's what they call it, a voidable contract. One party.
Right,
was
but
not accurate.
the topic that we have today is that the state has basically said that the contract has provisions that are
But
overreaching.
I think
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about the original HCA back on June 11th.
Okay.
When we pointed out different discrepancies. That was the contract that was voided.
Okay. So,
No.
I'm not seeing that there's been any type of, I don't know that we have any, fundamentally anything material that says that there was deception other than some administrative errors. So, no, I wouldn't say that we have anything that have under consideration that would imply that we would void the contract. I think those were remediated, actually, so. So where are we at with the motion and a second on the table?
We have the motion, it was seconded, and it was amended to authorize the chair to sign. I don't believe we've actually had a vote yet.
Beth, yeah, I have it, to authorize the chair to sign once language is approved by KP, and I have that, well, second Brad with a question mark, so I'm not sure if you did second it or not.
Second.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. So. Okay, retail.
I believe what you suggested was just the checkbox for the...
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we fill in the blanks on the host community agreement for retail and authorize the chair to sign that once we've got it drafted.
That was the motion.
That was the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Or discussion?
Any discussion?
For clarity, was this on the agenda, signing new hosting, for agreeing to sign new hosting community agreements for retail?
No, it's not on there explicitly. You want to set up a meeting for next week?
I think that's safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're
Well,
begging for.
technically, we should have had all three listed there.
Yeah, well, I think we're begging for an open meeting law violation if we do actually
Right.
entertain and sign, especially if we sign
Right.
the retail host community agreement.
So what day are you available next week to have a meeting?
Well, I already talked to Rich about next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday
Yeah,
night?
yeah.
Okay.
Any,
Wednesday's hard for me, but I'll make it.
I have, the only problem is I could potentially do Thursday. It's open house for my daughter.
No, it's okay. Wednesday is okay. I'm warning
Yeah.
you, it's gonna be like today. I'm gonna be walking in like
Yeah,
at the moment. So, 'cause it's one of my Connecticut days.
what about,
No, it's okay.
no, how about Tuesday?
Tuesday's better for me.
Rich? Well, actually, technically, it's only gonna be the HCA. Well, no, you had other things that you wanna talk
I
about.
could be here later than 7 if that helps out.
But we could, it's up to you. I mean, I could, for Wednesday are you talking, or Tuesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. You said the time is.
If we could do like 7:15 Wednesday, do you mind? Yeah, it gives me just a little extra
Yeah.
time between getting back and getting
Or
here.
7:30,
7:15's fine.
Okay.
It's enough.
Alright.
Today I was able to make it, but it was just, I'd like
Yeah.
to have a couple of minutes of breathing space.
So do we technically have to rescind anything here, or?
I think we may actually have to rescind, so I think what I'm gonna recommend is that we rescind the vote to go ahead and authorize you to sign, because it doesn't say anything about exactly which host community agreements, it just says discuss next steps. So I think we functionally have discussed next steps.
Right.
So the next step is go ahead, get the edits in there, get it reviewed by KP, and we'll circle back around next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll try to have it ready for
And
Wednesday.
make sure that the agenda actually empowers us to take a vote,
The vote. yeah.
please. So, and I didn't catch it, I apologize for the fact I didn't catch it.
Why do you have to why don't you just schedule on your regular selectmen's meeting? What's your?
He
I have
has a
an event
personal,
for my
he has a
daughter
personal event
that
on
I
Thursday.
committed to.
When, well, I mean, just whenever you have, I mean, what's the urgency, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, we also have to schedule something next week that I talked to Rich about for next week, so might as well put it at the same time.
Yeah, there's no.
And then
real-
I'm out of town, so it won't,
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to have a meeting the
Yeah.
following week because you're gonna be gone, so. So I think that's the appropriate
Yeah.
agenda to put it on, would be the next agenda,
Well, especially if Brad's not gonna be available, you won't have a quorum to be able to address
the issue.
this
Right.
this topic.
Exactly. So Wednesday next week?
yeah.
7:15?
7:15.
7:15
Yeah.
or the 11th, yep, I'll post it tonight. Actually, I'll do it Monday, in case anything else has to be added to it.
Yeah, you can do it Monday,
Yeah.
so there's plenty of time.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, okay, motion to adjourn?
Second. I'm tired too.
Yes.
Second.
Well, actually, you need. we need-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's a wrap. So the last motion was that we rescinded the vote to sign because we didn't have it explicitly on the agenda that we were gonna be